morning, grade 4s. Today we are going to talk about comparing adverbs, adverbs that use ER or EST or words similar to that. So just like an adjective modifies depending on whether it's talking about one thing or comparing it to more than one thing, an adverb modifies very similarly. So for example, if we have an adverb like low, whenever I'm comparing it to one other thing, so there's two things being compared, I'm going to add ER to the end. So low becomes lower. And if I'm comparing it to a whole bunch of things, like 2 or 3 or more, then I'm going to use EST for lowest. So that's pretty straightforward. But a lot of our adverbs end with an ly. When I'm comparing quickly to something else, would it make sense to say quicklier? No, that's too many syllables. It's like a whole bunch of things on top of each other. So instead of adding ER to my ly verbs, or my ly adverbs, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the words more and most. So if I'm comparing how quickly someone is running to one other person, I'm going to use more quickly. And if I'm comparing it to 2 people or more than that, I'm going to use most quick. And you see, depending on that, sometimes we keep the ly, sometimes we don't. You just have to be really careful when you're doing those. Actually, that probably could still use an ly. Either way, we are using the word most. That's the important part. Now, there's one other case, and this is where you don't use ER or more. You actually get their own forms. If you're talking about how good something is, for example, I did this well, I change well right to the word better. I do this better than someone else. I do this the best. And if it's the opposite, you could do worse and worst. So sometimes those come up as well. And we're going to see how we use that in our pages today. So let's start with Think A on page 133. In these ones, we have to choose the verb form using ER or EST, depending on which one we're comparing things to. So let's read the first sentence. Although we ran fast, Michael ran faster or fastest. So first of all, to figure that out, we're going to think, what is Michael's running being compared to? We're comparing Michael's running to the running of all the other people. If we're comparing it to more than one person, we're going to use EST. So fast, est. What about number 2? Mr. Smith arrived for choir practice than Mr. Green did. Am I going to use later or latest? Well, we're comparing Mr. Smith's arrival to Mr. Green's arrival. That's only one other person. So in that case, I'm going to use ER, later, just like that. So that's the difference. We can do the same thing when we're using the more and the most in our sentences as well. Look at Think B with me. Of all the violinists in the orchestra, Nathan practices more diligently or most diligently? Are we comparing his practice to one person or a whole bunch of people? And in this case, we're comparing it to a whole bunch of people. So I'm going to say most. It's compared to most, all of them. Number 2, Bella plays the notes accurately than Katie does. More accurately or most accurately? Well, I'm comparing Bella's playing to Katie's playing, just one other person. In that case, I'm going to use more for sure. Now that's all our review really we need to do on our adverbs grade 4s, but we are going to also do a bit of page 135 just to get you started on some of the trickier problems. So look with me at Think A on page 135. In this question, we need to mark our sentence. So underline our subject, double underline our verb, separate them out. And then we have to box any nouns we see, any person, places, or things, and draw arrows connecting the adjectives to the words they describe and the adverbs to the words they describe. So yes, this is a little bit of work, but we can do it if we take it one step at a time. Let's start with number 1, and we'll just mark our sentence first. The musician's elegant clothes rustled quietly on the wide stage. So first of all, I like to look for my verb. What's my action word in this sentence? Rustled means the movement of clothes. Now, who rustles or what rustles? The clothes do. So clothes is my subject. There we go. I found my subject and my verb. First part done. Next part, I'm going to draw a box around any nouns. That means there might be more than one in the sentence. Let's take a look. Clothes, definitely a noun, so I'm going to box it. Stage is also a noun, so I'm going to box it as well. Are there any more nouns? No, I don't think so. I think the rest of the words are describing words. So now we're going to get into our arrows. We're going to point our arrows from the word that's describing to the word it is describing. So for example, elegant is a describing word. What is elegant describing? The clothes. So I draw an arrow from elegant to the clothes. Musicians is also describing clothes. So I draw an arrow back there. And an article, also describing clothes. So I have 3 arrows going all the way back to clothes. Over here I have stage. The wide stage, wide describes stage. The also describes stage. And on is a word we haven't talked about yet, so we leave that alone. What about quietly? It ends with an ly, and it's discussing how the clothes rustled. So it describes the verb. That one's an adverb. So there we go. All of our adjectives and adverbs have arrows pointing to what they are describing. Let's do one more just to really get a hang of this. This concert is a special performance. So first of all, I'm going to look for my verb first. Is one of those tricky ones, but it is indeed a verb. Now what is or who is? The concert is. So concert is my subject. Subject, verb, separate with a line, first one done. Now I'm going to box my nouns. Concert, definitely a noun. And performance, that's a thing. That's going to be a noun as well. There we go. Now I'm going to look for all my describing words and draw my arrows. So this describes the concert, one arrow there. A is an article describing performance, so I draw an arrow there. And special is also describing the performance. So there we go. All my words are arrowed, and we are good. Let's take a look at the last one, which is this wonderful sentence that we need to diagram. So I'm going to read it, and then we're going to mark our sentence, this time for diagramming. So this means we have to go all out with our arrows, with our labels, with all of those things. So we'll try our best to do that. So here we go. Chloe and Ethan have been learning the viola quickly. So first of all, looking for my verbs. Learning is a verb, so I'm going to double underline that. And being and have are also verbs. They're helping verbs that help the learning. There we go. So that's all the verb of the sentence. What's the subject of the sentence? Who have been learning? Oh, Ethan has and Chloe. So we have 2 subjects separated by an and. That's going to come to play in our diagram. Good. Now I have a few other things here. Viola, the viola quickly. So first of all, viola I know is a noun. So that means it's either going to be my predicate nominative or it's going to be my direct object. So which of those 2 is it going to be? That is the question. So I look at viola and I think, does that describe Chloe and Ethan? Are Chloe and Ethan violas? No, that doesn't make sense at all. It's not linking back to Chloe and Ethan. So therefore this word has to be a direct object. That means these ones are all action verbs. There we go. Now the is describing viola or viola, so that is going to be an adjective that I'll have to keep in mind. And quickly is also describing something, but it's not describing the viola. It ends with ly. It's actually an adverb. So I'm going to draw an arrow from quickly to my verb here, because quickly is describing my verb. And just like that, grade 4s, I have it all diagrammed. So now I'm going to have to think about what my diagram looks like. Well, first of all, I notice I do have two subjects separated by an and, so I'm going to need two lines up here for both of my subjects to connect with and. There we go. So on the line, I'm going to put Chloe and Ethan. And then over here, I'm going to draw a nice long line for my verb. And I have three verbs that I'm going to put on that line. Now, they're not separated by an and, so I keep them on the same line. Have been learning. And then if I have a direct object, I put a line directly up and down like that. And I put Viola, my direct object, over there. There we go. Now I have the structure. Now I just need to add the describing words. So quickly is describing learning. So I put a line over here and put quickly on it. And the is describing Viola. So I put a line down here and put the on that. Now my lines aren't perfectly diagonal the way they're supposed to be because I sort of ran out of space, but that's mostly what your diagram is going to look like, grade 4s. I hope that helps you, and there it is, just a little bit clearer. Okay, bye-bye.